Hey, welcome back to the channel, everyone. It's time to talk about the elephant in the country, Detroit, Michigan. Unless you've been in a coma for 20 years, you know Detroit has seen some dark times. Detroit was once a booming auto manufacturing city. That's how it got its nickname, the Motor City. The boom started to fizzle in the 1980s when some CEO types decided they could turn a quicker buck by shipping American jobs overseas. Now this left the auto workers high and dry, and this is known in the business world as a dick move. Detroit in the last few years has been trying to make a comeback, and they've got a long road to go. They've got some scary neighborhoods they need to fix, and that's what this list is all about, the bad neighborhoods. Quick disclaimer, this list is done by stats alone. We're just going by stats on this one. And another thing, most people in Detroit like to refer to the neighborhoods by their cross streets, the major streets. I'm going to actually use the name of the neighborhood. So in case you want to look it up later on, you can. It's easier to find that way. It's next to impossible to find these neighborhoods by their cross streets. So let's get going. Here's my top 10 worst neighborhoods in Detroit. Number 10. Boynton Oakwood Heights. Boynton and Oakwood Heights are the southernmost neighborhoods of the city of Detroit. Now there's two separate neighborhoods, but most people kind of see them as one, and they both suck. These places bump right up against an industrial area, and of course this has raised some health concern for the residents living in Boynton Oakwood Heights for years. This, like so many other neighborhoods in Detroit, has seen a mass exodus from these areas. People just don't live there anymore. They move out. They have about 800 vacant homes right now. The banks don't even put up for sale signs anymore. The people have been taking them down and using them to heat their homes in the winter. It scores an F in all categories but cost a living, of course, because if no one wants to live there, it's pretty cheap to live there. Here's some fun facts. The overall crime rate in Boynton Oakwood Heights is 209% higher than the national average, and the unemployment rate is 94% higher than the national average. Number 9. Riverdale. Riverdale is in the northwest section of Detroit. This Riverdale is not like the Riverdale you see on that cheesy Archie comic mutation on the CW these days. This place is dirty, it's dangerous, and it's depressing. This is the type of place you move to if your life really hasn't worked out for you, and you've just given up. Here's some good news. You can get a house on the cheap. Here's a screenshot from Zillow. That one for $6K? Yeah, you're probably going to have to move the body of the old owner yourself for that price. I can't believe you can buy a house for $6,000. Here's some fun facts. The overall crime rate in Riverdale is 227% higher than the national average. This one is startling. Only 66% of the people in Riverdale have completed the 8th grade. Wow. Number 8. Griggsdale. Across from the Palmer Park Golf Course is one of Detroit's most rundown neighborhoods, Griggsdale. And I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, I'm not from there. This list is done basically off stats and news reports. The only reason you go here to Griggsdale is if you're bargain shopping for hookers. Some streets, such as Robinwood, are more than 80% abandoned and often the target of arson. Not even arson for insurance, arson for fun or warmth. Here's some fun facts. The unemployment in Griggsdale is 244% higher than the national average. The average rent ask is 48% lower than the national average. Number 7. Carbon Works. Besides having a very industrial-sounding name, Carbon Works residents share their little piece of heaven with the Detroit Water and Sewage Plant and is across the Rogue River from the ever-so-toxic Zug Island. Most towns pray for good weather, good schools, low crime. Carbon Works residents just pray the wind doesn't change direction while they're eating. Here's some fun facts. The overall crime rate in Carbon Works is 252% higher than the national average. The unemployment rate in Carbon Works is 72% higher than the national average. Number 6. Briggs. Briggs is a nightmare. Now, this is the neighborhood in Detroit called Briggs. Not me. Now, I'm sure if you talked to anyone I dated back in the day, they'd probably say I was a nightmare too. But this video isn't about my problems, it's about Detroit's problems. Briggs is also known as North Corktown, or it's kind of next to North Corktown. They kind of bleed into one another. The first thing you notice about Briggs is the strange amount of open land. Detroit started bulldozing vacant houses some years back, and Briggs was filled with them. So now you have like one house on a block that used to hold like 20. The rest is just empty fields. It's really eerie and it's really strange looking. I encourage you to Google map it. It's pretty weird. Here's some fun facts. The overall crime rate in Briggs is 263% higher than the national average. There's hardly anyone there. Who's committing all these crimes? The average home price in Briggs is 88% lower than the national average. See? Cheap land. That's one bright spot about Briggs. This place is a nightmare. Number 5. Poletown East. Poletown was named after the Polish immigrants who originally lived in the area. It almost sounds like a racial slur, Poletown. But I guess Poles even call themselves Poles, so I guess it's okay. Maybe not. Moving on. A portion of the residential area known as Poletown became General Motors' Detroit assembly plant in 1981, with those residents being relocated by General Motors. And the city of Detroit claimed eminent domain, took over the land. The plant is still there and employs 1,800 people. It did add an additional 1,200 jobs back in 2015, but then eliminated them like 12 months later. Now, this is another neighborhood filled with vacant lots. It's one of those ones you see like 2 houses where there used to be 20 and the rest is just, growth. It's not even like building growth, like bushes and stuff. You'd be surprised what you find in those bushes. Here's some fun facts. The overall crime rate in Poletown East is 218% higher than the national average, and the unemployment rate in Poletown East is 175% higher than the national average. Number 4. Springwells Village. Springwells Village is a neighborhood in southwestern Detroit, near the Ford Motor Company plant. Blah, blah, blah. Let's get the meat and potatoes of this place. It's right up the road from Carbon Works, and I'm sure with the right wind, you can catch a glorious whiff of the sewage plant. I read an article about the neighborhood and the smell of the sewage plant. This lady claimed that only out-of-town people even notice the smell. Now, that's kind of like some kind of Stockholm syndrome or something like that. She's just gotten used to it and you've learned to live with it. And you start sympathizing with the sewage plant. It's weird. If you look at this neighborhood, it doesn't look that bad compared to some of the other areas that I've shown you. They do have the vacant lots, not as many. They do have a whole lot of boarded up houses, not as many as some of the other places, but it still has a lot of crime. A lot of those crimes are burglaries, robberies, and like home invasions. And basically, since this is one of the better neighborhoods of the bad neighborhoods, I think they're drawing in more crime. This is just my opinion. I think they're probably drawing in more crime from the outside area to this area. I saw some videos on crime that was going on there. It's pretty bad, especially for the elderly. Here's some fun facts. The overall crime rate in Springwells is 246% higher than the national average. The median household income in Springwells is 45% lower than the national average. Here's a staggering stat. Only 50.9% of the people in Springwell have completed the 8th grade. Wow. Number 3. Northwest Goldberg. Normally when something has the word gold in it, it's a good thing. This place ain't normal. Far from it. This place is run down to say the least. Take a look at this place on Google Street View. And by the way, that's the only way I recommend anyone experience Northwest Goldberg. The area is home to the Motown Museum, and it has the Henry Ford Hospital on its border, which is an impressive building. Take a look at that, again, on Google Street View. Still, I find it hard to believe that anyone still lives here. I did come across a website that said it's getting better in Northwest Goldberg, and someday we'll return to a great place to raise kids. Someday maybe. Today, not so much. Most kids today in Northwest Goldberg don't get a bedtime story. Instead, they get their Miranda rights read in the back of a patrol car. Good times in Goldberg. Here's some fun facts. The overall crime rate in Northwest Goldberg is 246% higher than the national average, and the unemployment rate in Northwest Goldberg is 96% higher than the national average. Woo! Number 2. State Fairgrounds and Chaldean Town. These two are right next to each other and are both hellholes. The State Fairgrounds has almost no residents but plenty of crime, and Chaldean Town used to have a good-sized Chaldean community, so they named the neighborhood after them. It's now known as Northtown by some, seeing that most of the Chaldeans have skipped town. Today, most of the homes and businesses are vacant and need to be torn down, but are mostly boarded up or burnt out. This place is a step above a ghost town. So bad that maybe that show Ghost Hunters could do an episode or two here. I'd love to see that episode, as they try and contact the ghost of Maurice the crackhead. Talk to him for about a half hour. That would be terrific. Here's some fun facts. The overall crime rate in Chaldean Town and State Fairgrounds is 282% higher than the national average. Nice going. The unemployment rate in Chaldean Town is 184% higher than the national average. Words of advice: don't go here. And number 1, Ptowski-Otsego. Ptowski-Otsego is one of those places that nobody ever tells you that's where they're from. I came across some videos about how you can get cheap houses here from the government or from the city of Detroit, and in all the videos, they never say it's in Ptowski-Otsego. They always say things like it's with a view of this neighborhood, or walking distance from this neighborhood, a half a mile from this neighborhood. They never mention the neighborhood. And for good reason. AreaVibes.com gave it the lowest score I have ever seen, a 41. And it says it's barely livable. I saw another one that was barely livable, but at least that one had like a 46 score. This one's a 41. And that's not good. The street view on Google Maps is depressing to say the least. When I look at it, I think to myself, oh, that's what our country will look like if our government ever collapses. The best way to describe this place is eyesore. Now, I said that they're trying to sell these houses, and they sell them for really cheap. Here's some quick snapshots of the Zillow page for Ptowski-Otsego. Them some low prices, but I don't think it's worth it. This place is dangerous. I actually feel sorry for the residents of the place. I feel sorry for a lot of the residents, a lot of these neighborhoods. I don't feel sorry for like the homeless and the criminals that live there. They chose this place. Some of these poor people are elderly and they've lived there forever and they've got no way out. They've just hoped for the best. And that's the most depressing part about this. Here's some fun facts. The overall crime rate in Ptowski-Otsego is 252% higher than the national average. This is a small neighborhood. The unemployment rate in Ptowski-Otsego is 195% higher than the national average. They've got like 5,000 residents, and I think 12 of them have jobs, if I'm reading this correctly. It's not that bad, but pretty close. All right, everyone, that's my top 10 worst neighborhoods in Detroit. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Hope you got some laughs out of it. Now, this one was requested for a very long time, and I put it off for a long time because I've never been to Detroit. This whole video was statistically driven. I went by stats only. So I'm sure people from Detroit or that have some experience are going to have some complaints. Maybe the way I pronounced a neighborhood, or you think this neighborhood should be before that neighborhood, whatever. Like I said, this one was statistically driven, and I apologize if I mispronounced anything. I tried. The people of Detroit and the city of Detroit have been through the ringer over the last couple decades. Hopefully, they'll be able to pull themselves out of it. It's a great city with great people. Maybe someday. They deserve it. But as always, have a great night and be nice to each other.